Hello and welcome. My name is Alckemy, and today you and I are going to be talking about ambient music. Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Alckemy. Welcome to the channel. We are actually going to be going over stepwise and what I've done in order to make it a little bit more usable based off of the complaints that I had from the initial review. One cool thing about Bitwig is that there usually is, even if it's unelegant, a solution to almost every problem that it has. You need a slicer. There's a way to do that in the grid. You need, resampling. They've come up with several different processes of that. You need some kind of wonky sidechain. They've got that. You need a button that does randomization. That's something that we're going to cover in this video. So I really want to go over how to just turn this into a powerhouse monster of a sequencer. And if that seems interesting, then stick around because I'm going to kind of show you the steps that I've taken in order to make this something that, I don't know, you pretty much am going to be using this to start every track from this point on. You do need a couple of things. As you can see, I'm using Scalar 2. You don't need phase plant. The patch was extremely complicated, and we're going to be using something much more simple to help give you an idea about what we're doing. But with that being said, I think that this will equip you with a lot of tools for a lot of inspiration that should be a lot of fun. So let's go ahead and change all this, or rather what I'm going to do is delete all of this, because if I were to pull up just a normal stepwise anyways, then it wouldn't have, or the default has all this stuff saved. And let's strip this back to a much more simple patch, say something that's like FM4. Now, I love this sequencer thing. It does require a little bit of work and a little bit of input in order for you to get kind of what you want out of it. For example, something that I wish that this would have included is a per step offset, but thankfully there's a way to kind of remedy that. And there's also a way to get into making much more melodies and stuff via the stepper. Before I go any further though, I do have to give a shout out to Cage/Aiden for teaching me this trick with the scripts, which we're going to be kind of getting into here in just a second. And yeah, thanks dude. He teaches me a lot of stuff, and hopefully he learns stuff from me too. So with that being said, if you look over on the right, you can see that there are these dice here. And wouldn't it be cool if there was a way to do that with all of this stuff? Well, fear no more, there is a way. We can do this via the steps. And so I'm not going to do this with every single track. I'm just going to give you the overall gist of this. But what I have here are 3 macros. You can just pull up a new macro like this, type in macro, grab this one, and you want to put this to bipolar. And what we would do normally is, let me delete these. Let me move this over so that way, just for continuity's sake, what we would normally do is open this up and we would send this to 0. So if I triple click, I think, yeah, we can go 0. And now what we can do on this is to set this up and push this up all the way to 100%. Or I guess what we can do is just, oh, I almost had it. All right, I don't need to be pedantic with it, but 107%. So what this means now is that this amount here will go both downward and upward. Now, the cool thing about this is that this can be a global control, because what we can do is we can map this or duplicate this to several different things, kind of like so. And if you look at this, all of these will be mapped, right? But before we do that, we actually want to hold off on this for just a second, because there is a very important thing that we need to go in and do this for. If you look right here, this is the only chance/dice button that we have as far as I know. And it's unfortunate because there's no dice button or dice modulator that we can use just as a button or something to be like random. And I hope that Bitwig adds that in the future. However, this actually does work. And even though you can't initially anyways have something that toggles this, what you can do, and I guess I should show you that. If I were to open up a button right here and I wanted to map this, we actually can't map this. But what we can do is we can go over here and we can activate this. And as you can see, I've got a bunch of stuff mapped to this. I can go like this and I can go Command R. And now anytime that I hit Command R, guess what this is going to do? Boom, 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 boom. Isn't that wonderful? So now what we can do is map this over here and create 8 different versions of these. And as you'll see, if I go like that, it'll randomize all of these into different things. They're different every time. And so we just need to make 8 of these. Sweet. So the next piece of this, and actually I need to back up, because what we need to do first is grab this and then go here to make this bipolar, so that way I don't have to do this 8 times. Now we can copy this again, and this is an important step. I mean, if you mess up, you don't need to delete all this and start completely over, but I figure that if you just use one, then you don't ever have to do this again, which is kind of nice. But what's cool now is that if you look this way, it will go down into this, and if you go upwards, it'll go positive, so you can flip the polarity of this whenever you want. So in light of that, one other thing that might be important with this is to make sure that this is the timing that you want. Generally speaking, I set all of these to 1/8 notes, but right now we're just going to leave it at 1/4 notes, so that way I don't have to backtrack. Now, if we take a look at this one, say, and I go here, one thing that I would want to do with this is to set this at 200% for now, because it's just going to be easier to map here. Now, with this offset, if I do this, that means that it's at 200%, so it's going to overlap twice as far as the offset. So if I were to start just playing a melody with this, let me go ahead and solo this. And then I'm also going to come over to this side and set this to pulse. When you start moving this around and this starts building a relationship with each other, it's going to be kind of wonky. And so I found that the ratio for this that is going to work out better for me anyways is at 0.5. And the reason why is because this will only allow it to go about 50% swing or 50% offset or 50% minus 50% offset. And the reason why that works is because that way it's never going to skip over the next one or mess over the previous one. And so because you have something like that, this will be mapped to this one. Then we can do this to this one. So we can click on this here and go 1, 2, 3. Let's just kind of map that and then do this to all of them, because that's probably going to be the easier move. And as you can see, what I'm doing is this will go top to bottom, top to bottom, top to bottom. So if we map this here, I believe that's already mapped. We'll just kind of mark it. Are we on 5? 5, 6, 7, 8. Cool. So now if we click on this over here, you can see that all of these are mapped to different amounts. For this guy, which these are the steps for the global modulator, so you don't want to touch these. What you want to mess with are the steps here. So this one's correct. We'll go to this and go 0.5, double click, 0.5, double click, 0.5, double click, 0.5. You can also mess with these too if you want to keep it at the full amount, but I don't really see the need to mess with them. Those are just the curves of which, if this goes up, this will kind of follow along a, what is it? Not a parabola, but a, up, right, up curve. Yeah. So in any case, cubed. Yeah. So in any case, what we can do now is we can adjust this to have a certain kind of rhythm whenever we play this. And so I'm going to pitch this up just a little bit and take a listen to what's going to happen when I start to adjust hitting this R button along with the amount. Now, what's really cool about this as well is that if you wanted to, you can change this to here. So now this is going to follow along each step if you want this to be accurate. So if I change this kind of like so, and I place this here, now we have a note on every single one. I can make this one normal. If I pull this down, this is actually going to make this late. So this is early, this is late. So if we make this late, we make this a little bit later, we make this one here. Let's say we make this one a little early, do something like this. Make this one late, make this one late, that one's fine. Then we can actually go in here and do this by hand if we want to. It's still finicky and I'm still getting the ratios right, but it's much more usable than from before. So now take a listen. And also when you're doing this, if you don't have pulse on, then it's not going to work correctly, because this is going to trigger every time this hits a step versus the gate, which would be kind of like holding it, I guess, if you will. And so what's cool about this is now you can kind of do this with all of these, right? And create different relationships and stuff. But this isn't the only thing that I've used this for. One thing that I think is also important about this is that because of these steps, we can kind of make this become an entire musical sequencer if we want it to. And that's kind of what I think that we're going to do. So the next piece of this could be a couple of things. For one, we can add another one here. So we can go into steps. And I'm just going to do this for the next two on track 1, just for the sake of time to not bore you. And then I'll show you my version that I've made and how that comes into play and whatnot. But what we can do is open this up, right click this, set this at 0, and then grab this guy, set that to somewhere close to 100, whatever. And then we've got this. Now we can set this to a different keybind. So I can go like this and go Option R perhaps, or something different like that, and set that up. And now whenever I come out of this, if I go Option R, that will kind of change that. And what we can do with this one perhaps is change the rhythm or the timing of this. So if we set this down to a bar, we can just leave this here in non-bipolar mode because this is going up. Or we can set this to go here and just make sure that this is the full amount. So that way this goes up and down. It's up to you. It doesn't really matter. And I would say that you probably want to create your own version anyways, based off of what your needs are. But now that we do have this, we can set this to, the timing on this. And whenever we kind of play with this, this is going to change the timing of which this is repeated. So if we set this to maybe an 8th note as well, leave everything at transport, then take a listen. And what's really cool about this as well is that it's going to play back in time. So it's always going to replay in the same way because it's still sequenced. So if we adjust this just a little bit, then we might be able to kind of get some cool syncopation here. Great. And you can kind of see how that works. So now let's go ahead and do our third one here, which is going to be the pitch. And we've got a little bit more to discuss, so bear with me. But this one we are going to set to bipolar. We're going to triple click, set this at 0. I'm going to set the timing of this to be 8th notes. And then what we will do is set this to here, go up to about 100. You can set this the whole way, but I think that if you do it this way, it'll be a little bit cleaner. And what we're also going to do is we're going to grab the steps here and set this downwards to where it can only go down to 2 steps. So that way, if you want this to only go into being able to play the first 2 steps, it's only going to do that, which is nice. If you do it the other way at 2 steps and then you go up, you won't be able to see what the rest of the steps are. So you want to keep it at 16 and then reduce it so that way these 2 are visible. At least that's how I've come to understand how to make this work. But now that we have that, what we can do on this is click on this and we can drag this all the way up somewhere close to 24. On the money. Let's go. And then what we can do with this is we can also map this to another separate thing, perhaps like, I don't know, Shift Command R. And I have a few of these set up for one, like, I'll talk about this in a second, but one of these is set up for drums, one of these is set up for melodies, and they're all mapped in a way that are different keyboard shortcuts of R for random. So you can map it to whatever you want, but typically speaking, my Command R and any keyboard shortcut with R is free. So we could do that. But you have something that can randomize the bottom row, the top row, and the middle row. I don't know why I did it in that order, but yeah, or you could just do it by hand. But the reason why I like to do it like this is so that way I don't have to open up every single one and be like, change this one, change this one, change this one, because it's very annoying, right? So now that we have that though, we can push the amount up to 24 semitones. And what's cool about that is this is going to start to create a melody. So if we turn scalar off, it's going to be wild, but yay! So this is where the whole point of a key filter or scalar or harmony bloom comes into play. And I use all of them because they have different scales, or maybe they're all the same scale, but just with different names. So if you have something like this is great. If you don't have something like that, that's okay. You can use just the key filter or the diatonic transposer, or I think it's called something else, but there's this one. And then there is the note. Which one is it? I can't remember which one it is, but there's another one that is a classic like scale maker via very reminiscent to Ableton. I'll put it in the description, but for the sake of not wanting to re-record this, I'll find it later. Note filter, perhaps? No. Note delay. Yeah. Anyways, so you can use the key filter. I'm sure that somebody's going to answer it in the comments. And what I have here is a scale selector for these different. There's only 9, but that's okay because this is what you usually only need this. But I've also got some buttons set here that jump up either an octave, a fifth, a third, something like that, just to kind of change modes. And so now if you have something like G, let's go G minor, all of the notes that go through here, even though these are randomized, will be filtered through this. So and I like doing this because it offers different mode changes, which is sometimes pretty cool. And sometimes just staying in the same key gets really boring, so that might not always be the best option. One other thing that you can do as well, which is really fun, is you can grab a multi-note, or sorry, I'm going to grab an effect selector. And I'll talk about this maybe in a separate video. But on here, what I have are some chord banks that are based off of the number system, because if you look at the division of what makes a chord, like you have on one end the academic, which is like whole tone, half tone, but in stuff like us for nerds and whatnot, we have numbers, right? So if 0 is the root note and you climb up 3 semitones, then there's that. If you climb up 7 semitones, you've got a fifth, you know? And so by looking at the structure of different chords, you can kind of select different stuff here in order to change that. So if we set the timing of this to be a little bit slower, kind of like here, and we just kind of let this play out for this, we're going to have these different chords that we can select. So and when I'm actually making music, I'm not trying to like make this do magic for me. And that's one thing that I probably should have opened with. This is really just for searching for harmonic content that you can either resample or record MIDI into, which very quickly to do that, all you have to do is go to a new MIDI track like this, go here, and then go to FM4, find whichever output you want. In our case, we're going to go to the key filter, and then you just hit record. So and what's nice about this is that even though this is all out of time and blah, 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 and whatever, the chords are still there. And so you know what I mean? You can build chord progressions like this very easily, or just jam, or just do whatever. But yeah, that's another thing that you can do in order to make this usable. And from this point, imagine if you have all of these rows filled out and able to, you know, kind of fill this out for you and have a lot of different stuff happening at once. There is also a thing which I regret to inform, but I don't know how to use the MIDI channels yet. And when I figure it out, I'll make a video about it, or maybe somebody can describe it. But you could, in theory, have one sequencer send out to a bunch of different channels, to my understanding. So that could be cool too. And then keep in mind that you can do another one for drums, which I have the offset, and then I have the different divisions to create different drum grooves. And now you've got this powerhouse of a sequencer that can do so much more than what the initial interpretation of this was supposed to be. So in any case, let me know what you all think about this. And I know that it's kind of lengthy and whatnot, but it's a very handy device that I enjoy using just to help me get started with something, because generally speaking, I'm the kind of person that doesn't have an idea in my head whenever I start producing. I need a spark. I need to have a catalyst. So anyways, thank you all so much. Maybe I might put these up for people that are for the ARCANUM memberships or something. If you're interested in it, let me know. But yeah, other than that, thank you all so much and have an awesome rest of your evening. I'll see you in the next one.